All right. Well, now we are thrilled to welcome back to the pod our favorite recurring guest. He
Oh,
seems to be our Daytona guy over the last year and a half or so. We've got Derek Yoder back on the podcast to kick us off once again for the Daytona 500. Derek, welcome. How are you doing?
Phil, thank you very much. Happy to be back. I'm doing well. I'm pumped for Daytona. I'm pumped that the season is finally here. Everything we've talked about over the last number of months, whether like you've been talking about silly season or talking about so many things on various shows for me, I'm happy to know that we are going to see actual cars on track in a meaningful event, and we're going to see a lot of action. So I'm pumped. Thanks for having me back, and looking forward to getting into some of the conversation tonight.
Absolutely. I was trying to think back. You're definitely my like whatever the term is, you've been on the podcast as a guest the most. Like you've got the record for that. You started, I think it was to kick off the playoffs one year. Then you
Yep.
came on for the championship. Then
Yep.
you came on for Daytona, then summer Daytona, then the championship
Oh,
again, and now here we are for
I like
Daytona. So you're just the big race guy, and couldn't be more happy to have you break down. So the first thing I want to ask you, because I took a nice, relaxing off season, just kind of like not thinking about NASCAR, just turning the brain off. You went a different route. And you have become maybe the most busy guy in like motorsports podcasting. I don't know if that's a correct
I love it.
thing to say, but I think it's arguable. So, how have you been doing in the off season? And tell me about your podcast that you put together.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. Yeah, no, like you said, I've been very busy, but that has been intentional. I have a dream, I have a goal of making it in the industry, whether it's the sports betting industry or motorsports in general. So, kind of took it in the fourth gear in the off season, taking a lot of the momentum that we together have helped develop, and then. Like I said, going into the off season, Brian Murphy of Stewart Haas Racing and I joined and are doing a podcast called All Things Go, and we've had such a blast doing that. We just had our 13th episode yesterday, which was with Jeff Gluck. We've had Don Hawk, CEO of SRX, on. We had Matt Weaver on. We've had so many list of names: Parker Kligerman, Andy Lally, Chris Wormy from the betting industry. So it's been a lot of fun, and we've been able to talk to so many different people. But it's been nonstop, and there have been times where I'm like, I wish I could have had a little bit of rest, but I'm learning so much right now about motorsports, about LMP2, LMP3, F1. And I think what I've realized is I'm passionate about racing, I'm passionate about NASCAR, but I'm realizing that there are elements that I was not aware of that are going to help me in a handicapping process just through watching and understanding practice and qualifying on a week to week basis. So I'm learning a lot, and yeah, I mean, I'm enjoying the grind. I'm enjoying the journey, even though it's hard a lot of the times.
I mean, yeah, I can imagine it. 13 episodes to crank out since the
Hmm.
end of the NASCAR season from 2022 is quite a lot. And those are some big names like Jeff Gluck, your most recent guest. Like
Yep.
you feel like you can't get bigger than that. But then before that, you had the Hawk on from SRX,
Yeah.
and that's just unbelievable. And just to kind of cap off a great offseason that you've had, and I know you've got even bigger names, you're shooting for down the road. So
Hmm.
you and Brian are a great team. If you haven't had a chance to listen to All Things Go, it's really great to hear you guys as like a dynamic duo asking the questions. Let me ask you. You mentioned you're learning things
Hmm.
for handicapping. Like, give me an example. Like, what's something that you've learned over the past like couple months that you're going to be looking at moving forward? In the season.
Well, it's Brian works for Stewart Haas Racing, and there's so much that goes into the car and around the car, and is affiliated with that. That just some of the terminology that he's saying that I never even equated to my handicapping process of understanding the various teams, and then understanding the personnel behind the scenes, the crew chief, the car chief, and some of the personnel that even go into making the body fabrication that I was not aware of. So I really tried to study maybe who went where and understand what teams are affiliating themselves. RFK is a good example. They, with Brad coming on last year, they really started developing a team, and there's so many people that keep pointing eyes at what they are building and saying that's going to be a very dynamic team because all the personnel. So just kind of watching that, and then even when they're doing their track tests, like they were just out at Phoenix, and some of the information there, and just kind of understanding, okay, it's not what I would have thought of before. It's like, oh, it's cool to hear cars are on track, but now it's like, okay, what were they doing on track? Who was at the track test? Why is that important? Maybe what's some data or anything I can find out from it, and then applying that. And, when we had Andy Lally on and just hearing about different elements, maybe it's slipstream, or maybe it's vehicle ins and outs, and even Parker talking about the Xfinity cars, and just kind of understanding what goes into his process, and then equating that to, well, what's a driver that's comparable to him? And the list can go on. You can take it in 1,000 different ways, but it's been cool for me to kind of take it and be like, okay, I really want to learn. I really want to understand, because then when I sit down and I'm watching practice or qualifying or even the race, I want to know this track, this car, this reason, all kind of comes together, and we can make some money.
Makes sense. I mean, you're doing great work. Is the plan to keep going like an episode a week type of deal in the regular season? Is
Yep.
Brian going to be able to keep up that clip?
Yep, Brian's going to be able to keep up with that. It's our goal to each other. It's our promise. So I just texted him not too long ago, and I said, let's dominate the next 38 weeks of the season and do everything we can. So, yeah, we're going to crank out an episode every show. But we've also had guys, we've had Stephen Mitchell, who's the truck driver for the four hauler, just to kind of understand that background. We've had, like I said, we had Break from F1, who's a huge content creator. And what he does, he was a former F1 engineer for Red Bull, and just kind of hearing that conversation. So we're having a lot of really unique conversations within motorsports, and it's really cool to be able to see all these guys behind the scenes, whether it's with the Dirt Series or Steve Post we had on with MRN. And it's like, man, it's so cool to be able to just sit down and chat with these guys. So yeah, the goal is to do that, and then continue to grow the NASCAR Betting Preview Show like we've been doing. And Daytona is a big week for us. We have Jim Sonis on of FanDuel and Number Fire, so it's going to be tons of fun. So I'm pumped.
Well, let's get into that. Good segue. That's what I wanted to ask you about next, or at least kind of have you describe, because I gave that a plug last week. When I was doing my NASCAR season win total preview show, but you have been hard at work, just kind of working on that Twitter Spaces show, the NASCAR Betting Preview Show. We do that on Twitter every Wednesday night. And last year, you go on Twitter, you hear us talk, and that was kind of it. You have really busted your ass to make that a place that people will be able to go get their content live on Wednesday and participate, but also now watch it in a number of different ways. So tell just like that process of what you've been going through and where we are today, and what to expect this year for anyone who enjoys that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So yeah, like you said, I mean, the NASCAR Betting Preview Show started last year, and as I tell the story, the first 3 shows had no listeners, but that 4th show had 3 listeners, and Rory being one, and then we were able to all kind of come together and really make an impact. And it was so cool to see our progression throughout the year and the things that we were able to do. And then eventually, when we got to Homestead, we had 2,100 listeners, and then we had another 800 for Phoenix. And then recently for the Clash and kicking off our season preview, we had Spider of Barstool Sports on and be able to talk with him and have him as a guest. And it's just been amazing to have those conversations and see the industry understand who you are and who Mark is and who Rory is, and just get accustomed to all of us and join and support us as well. So the NASCAR Betting Preview Show was only on Twitter Spaces, and we saw so much growth there of the community coming out, listening and supporting replays. But now we're going to Twitch, YouTube, and it's all powered by Podium Esports, who helps with the MNR, which is a iRacing league, and got connected with them through the various things I do with them and their network. So Podium and Gary Sexton, I have to say a big thank you to, because we just got into a conversation one day, and his goals and my goals seem to be aligning. And We had no idea we were going to even be touching on some of these topics. And next thing you know, we're talking about streaming and having different opportunities because, we want to see this grow for numerous different ways. And Twitch, is obviously a big platform and a major platform and new to us. So now not only do you hear us on Twitter Spaces, but now you get us on Twitch and YouTube. And you also then get the podcast form of the show, where then we can put out a couple other different shows. You and I are going to do a truck series betting preview for Daytona coming up. So it's just utilizing as many platforms as we can. There are 24 hours in one day. I forget that. But utilizing as many as we can and giving the listening audience and the better and the people that just want to learn more about the sport more opportunity to engage and understand who we are as well.
It's fantastic. I'm excited. Wednesday night, tomorrow night. We're recording this on Tuesday night, so it's a lot when you're, as busy as you are. So I appreciate you spending time with me tonight, and I'm happy that we have odds out to talk about. So let's look to 2023. And my first question about 2023, I'm not going to ask you like who's going to be the champion, right? That's
okay.
Rough.
Good.
But are you taking anything away from last year and kind of, saying, all right, I'm going to utilize that as this season's progressing, what can I learn from last year and how to apply it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you look at, we'll start with Christopher Bell. So Christopher Bell, he had 2 big wins at the end of 2022, and they were strategy dependent wins. Martinsville was strategy dependent at the end with taking tires and then also at the Roval. So he scored 2 wins there, but I think that momentum continues for him. And I think he's a guy that we got to take very serious this year. I think he is a guy that will have multiple wins. I know his over under right now is -1.5 wins. And I've been telling a lot of people to take the over on that. Another guy, and take it to the flip side, we saw William Byron come out hot last year. He won at Atlanta. He dominated Martinsville. That was an interesting situation there because of the temperatures, new car, etc. However, still won, almost won Darlington, got put in the wall late. But that car, I believe HMS used that as a test car. He had 2 wins. He was locked himself into the playoffs. This was a new Gen 7 vehicle, giving his other drivers some tools. And some of the stuff I've learned from Brian Murphy is these teams have not had a lot of cars. They have not had a lot of parts. And we heard that a lot last year. Well, what better way to utilize some of those resources than when you have a guy that's already locked in? So I feel like William Byron is going to have a very strong year because he's no longer that test vehicle. So you can learn different things like that. There's nothing you can really take from the Xfinity series and apply it to Cup. And there's really nothing I can take from even generation 6 or 5 of the Cup car and apply them in Gen 7 because it's a whole new ball game. It's a whole new car. The diffuser, everything underneath the car is different. How the cars race, how edgy they are. Everything's different. So when I watch back on replays week in and week out, getting ready for a race, there's so much stuff from a strategy standpoint I'm able to watch. Who's falling back, who's coming through, and those kind of things you can just tuck away in your mind, and it makes it so much easier for us that do the live betting element, which we have those abilities now. So just to name a few, that's what I got.
That's good stuff. You called out a couple drivers who I have future bets on. So I'm happy to hear you, in agreement, looking forward to Bell and Byron, guys that you're expecting to kind of take the bull by the horns this year. I'm in a full agreement with that for really similar reasons. So
there's one more guy I forgot to name, and it was Chase Briscoe. And Chase ended the year so strong. He could have had 3 wins by the end of May, got into some wrecks, Charlotte and Bristol Dirt. He finished the year, his last 10 races. I believe he had 7 top 10s in his last 10 races. He's going to be a guy that is going to be competing and in races week in and week out. And I think just having that extra year, we talk about in fantasy football a lot, or we just talk about in football in general. 3rd-year wide receivers usually have breakout years. Well, Chase Briscoe is entering a 3rd year for a Cup Series. He has so much success throughout his racing career, and a lot of people look at his talent. Matt Weaver was saying one of the most talented drivers in NASCAR is Chase Briscoe. He will be an eventual champion, and that's one of those guys that's like, okay, if he's saying that, and what is his skill set? What is he good at? And Chase kind of fits the mold for a lot of different places that we stop. So that was one call I want to make sure I got in.
Yeah, I'm glad you did, because I have not really been the guy who believes in Briscoe. I know he got the win earlier in the season at Phoenix, but kind of just like wrote him off as, okay. But no, he made the round of 8, which is huge.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure, and probably had a lot to do with pointing his way in, like you said, the last 10 races. So I'm interested to see. There's a couple
Mm-hmm.
drivers like him that I'm fully prepared to fade. Chastain is another one. Guys who had success last year that I expect, maybe a fall off, but it's great to hear
Mm-hmm.
another opinion on him. And I could probably easily be persuaded to throw something in on him because the odds, I imagine, are pretty good to the gambler. So, yeah, good call out by Briscoe, or for Briscoe there.
Mm-hmm.
So as we're talking about 2023 season, I wanted to now talk about something new. And this is something that you're involved in, Derek. And I want to just explain what this is and then get your thoughts, maybe as
Yeah.
Daytona is approaching. So a lot of people remember toolhangers.com from last year. Jordan from Tool Hangers, great
Mm-hmm.
dude, worked with me for the Tool Hangers Bet of the Week last year, gave away a nice gift card. This season, I wanted to, Jordan was like, hey, let's figure out something to do. And one thing that I was hoping to do was connect. There's a lot of different content creators in the game now. People that have come on the NASCAR Betting Preview Show. Everyone's
Mm-hmm.
got a nice podcast now. I wanted to try to thread some of these shows together in some way with competition. So over the all season was kind of curating, like, what's the best way to do this? Keep it simple. And
Yeah.
there's a one and done pool. So what that means is each week you pick one driver and you get those points for that driver, and then you can't pick him again until the playoffs. Then the playoffs, things reset and it gets a little different. But
Oh.
you pick 2 drivers and the pool is wide open again, and then you can't take them. In any case, we've got people from all over. If you're a fan of NASCAR gambling, you probably know, that we've got the guys from the NASCAR gambling show, the Cody
Mm-hmm.
Zeebs, and most likely Rod. I'm not sure if he'll jump in or not. We've got all the guys from our show on Wednesday,
Mm-hmm.
so that could be a topic on Wednesday nights to see what people
Yep.
are leaning towards. We've Chris Wormy had said that he'd be in, but when he said that, he was at the Waste Management, so we'll see. The flag hunting guys are in. We've got Ryan Stevens from Win the Race,
Mm-hmm.
who's in. Seth from In Between Media, and Rye Cape, he's in as well, like a bunch
Yep.
of different people. But the cool thing that Chris came up with was Twitter. If you're listening to the show and you want to play along with us, we're going to have a Twitter account where the poll on Twitter will capture the votes of who Twitter wants to say the
That's
driver should be
cool.
that week, and we'll see if Twitter can compete against everyone that I'm talking about here and all these different shows. So it'll be fun for bragging rights. I know we got to
Mm-hmm.
work out a price for the pool still, but I'm excited to see this. Hopefully it's something we can keep up with. My thought was over the dog days of summer, when things are getting a
Yeah.
little draggy, we can still use that as a way to kind of bolster some content and poke fun at each other. So with that, I appreciate you joining that. And
Mm-hmm.
have you given any thought this week to who you're going to use early? You don't have to give it away yet. You don't have to punch it in
Okay.
until the day of, but anybody that sticks out to you early in the week here for Daytona?
Oh yeah, Ty Dillon. How can you not?
You're taking
I was
my
just,
guy.
yeah, I know. I thought about that. I had that one. You know, I was cooking that one up. No, I know I could go your guy. Even though you don't have to say who you're taking. We all know who you're taking. But no, I think my strategy. Yeah, definitely am excited. A buddy and I that is just getting into the sport. We did this same thing last year, and we had nothing on the line. We would text each other every week. He would send me a list of who we took, and it was really cool to see his engagement in getting into the sport, watching the Truck Series and Xfinity. So I'm all in. I think this is a really cool thing that can last throughout the entire season. Like you said, I forgot that it does reset at the playoffs, so it might shift what some of my strategies are. But super speedways, you can kind of take a little bit more of a risk. Anybody that's listening that is in it, I definitely highly recommend you take Denny Hamlin. I think that would be dumb if you did not. So no, I think it's going to be a really cool competition. And you and Chris coming up with something that, hey, is going to bring some of the handicappers and people well known on Twitter from the gambling space together and kind of be who's tout themselves as I was the best this year. And I think that's really cool. So good on you guys, and good to see Jordan and Tool Hangers getting involved. That's cool.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. And hopefully it works out. These season long deals, sometimes they fall off, but I'm hoping, with all of us talking shit every week, at least on Wednesday nights, we'll keep it alive. So, yeah, should be fun, and happy to, try to build some content off of that, and, talk some shit. So let's talk Daytona.
Yep.
That's why we're here. I wanted to ask you a point blank question, and this kind of goes along with what you were saying earlier about, talking with Brian, learning a little about what to look for as you're handicapping races. So we've got speed week now. The Clash is gone. So it's not speed weeks, but we've got qualifying on Wednesday night. We've got the duels on Thursday, and then full into the races, trucks, Xfinity, and Cup. What matters more to you as you're looking to kind of structure your card for the Cup race? What matters more to you, qualifying, the duels, or the practice that comes throughout the weekend?
Yeah. So this week specifically for Daytona, it would be the duels, because I want to see whose cars are really working best. What are the drivers saying? Taking a lot of intel from what that conversation is. At the super speedways, you can kind of finish wherever. These cars they get massive runs, but they're not able to pass a whole lot like we used to see back in the early 2000s, even middle, 2010s, where you could be back in 26th or 27th, or like Kevin Harvick did. He came all the way from the back. Even the last lap, I think he was in 9th and won the race. There's different things that need to happen, but for me, going into Daytona, it is the duels that I'll take the most out of, because that's when I'm able to see some racing action, and like I said, be able to figure out what the guys are saying. Now, week to week, like next week's Auto Club, that'll be different. Practice is usually almost always more important to me. Just some of the data, some of the notes that I'm able to get and see there are usually what's going to be number one. But this week, it's going to be the duels. How about for you?
Good answer. Yeah, I mean, I think Daytona is so unique, and the fact that they do the qualifying and then you have the duels, and that's what sets the tone, or sets the field rather. I was not sure what you were going to say, because obviously I think most people think that qualifying is a bit of a joke for the 500. Just not necessarily a joke, but you're not going to be able to tell much.
No.
What's going to go on in the race, single car qualifying. So, or however they're going to qualify. Duels came to mind, and I'm not sure where I land, just because of how you can have such differing strategies in the duels. Like, you've got guys who are just going to play it safe, and teams that are just like, you know what, we want to keep our car intact. We've been working on it all year or off season. So we're just going to ride in the back, and then they come alive. So, I don't know if can you trust everything that you see. You kind of have to look at everything with a, grain of salt, but I hear what you're saying about seeing the cars, like how they act. And I kind of like seeing how the drivers act too. Like, if I see a guy who's really aggressive and really racy, and, in the duels trying to get good position, man, he's not going to hold back at all when it comes to Sunday. So I see why you would say the duels. I enjoy practice because I like seeing how they kind of link up with their teammates and their manufacturers, and seeing, in that case, like who has a fast car lap time wise. So I don't know. I think I would probably go practice, because they're trying to just lay down like the who has the fastest car tweak, try to get faster and faster and faster. And they will still be able to draft a little bit with their teammates and manufacturer buddies, but and the reason why the duels I'm a little skeptical is, like I said, I'm not sure if everybody's on the same like gotta go get it mentality, but it's 6 in one hand, half dozen the other, and that's why I wanted to ask you the question.
Yeah. If you don't mind, I do want to chime in about that, because I think this is a good conversation, because I was thinking practice as well until again, having some conversations with Brian and just understanding that these teams do not have backup cars. Like they do not have it at the disposal that we used to remember. So when they only have maybe one per 4 cars, it makes it so tough. I don't think we're going to see anything in practice. I don't even know if we'll see numerous cars, like you said, drafting together, because just that risk of, hey, we already did the duels, that's done. Now, if you do the duels and you get into a wreck, you're going to see that car and that team practicing like a good bit to make sure that that car is ready. But I think that's going to be it. When you have some of these guys that are, like a team of Hendrick, or let's just use the JGR TRD guys, because there's 6 cars there. I don't think we see them practicing a whole lot, because what they got is what they got. That's just my devil's advocate, if you will, just thought process. But
Well,
you might be right.
Let me respond to that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that makes me question the duels a little bit. I was going to ask you about backup cars,
Mm-hmm.
because let's go off of what you're saying. I wasn't
Mm-hmm.
sure if these guys had the backup cars that we're used to yet. So I'm assuming
Mm-mm.
what you're saying is they don't.
3 or 4 weeks they'll have their full allotment.
In 3 or 4 weeks. So for
Mm-hmm.
Daytona, they don't. So
No,
it's one
no.
car per whatever, and everybody's a little bit different, but still a small amount. So
Right,
that
very
would
small.
make me feel like the drivers in the duels are getting
Mm-hmm.
instructions like, do not fuck this up. Like, and
Correct.
that would make me as a driver want to ride in the back and not
That
show my hand.
I think it'll be more of a tame duels than what we're accustomed to of years past. Last year, and I was just watching the duels the other night, and they were pretty tame. There was really no action. The last lap of the Logano race where Buescher won is when Logano made a block and got wrecked. So his car was wrecked there. But that was really the only action that we saw for those 2 races. And I kind of think the same thing can be said then going into this week, where, like you said, I mean, guys aren't going to fuck around. They're just going to try to keep it straight. But these are also drivers going 200 miles an hour. And to be up front, some of these guys are trying to race their way in. Other guys are trying to get a better position. Maybe they didn't qualify well. So there's going to be a lot of things that, as you know, that are at play. And it makes it seem easy of like, okay, we'll just kind of hang out till 5 to go. But like, we're still talking with 5 to go. Like, shit goes crazy with 5 to go. The helmet comes off their head almost and down to the floorboard when they're just going, all out. So I don't know I think we're going to see a tame race on Thursday, but I think we can learn a lot in whose car is drafting the best, what manufacturer, I should say, is drafting the best, gets the most, be able to kind of draft up on a car. We saw it 10 years ago. I want to say it was 10 years ago where Trevor Bayne in the 21 car, I think it was 10 years ago, where he had the best pusher. Anybody that has the best pusher is somebody that we should be betting on Sunday, because he's able to get to the front. And if he's in 3rd or 4th going into the final lap, and we know how much of a strong car he has or how his team has, that's going to play a major factor into our betting process. So those are some of the things that I think the duel make it even more imperative of maybe the most important session of the entire week.
Good points. I think it also is imperative that you're actually watching. Like just looking at,
Mm-hmm.
lap times and things like that is not going to give you the full picture if you're trying to go off of the duels alone.
Right.
You're going to have to see with your own 2 eyes, like what's going on the
Mm-hmm.
track. So yeah, you'll definitely want to do your homework there going into the
Mm-hmm.
500. And that's why it is the most important race of the year, the biggest race of the year. So how about you, your betting strategy? I'm not asking you specifically
Yep.
who you like, but how do you bet the 500 and super speedways in general? I kind of went through earlier on the pod
Mm-hmm.
how I do it. Kind of a broken record for anyone that's been listening for a few years now. But what's your approach? Do you find your guy or two and
Mm-hmm.
dive in and hit big, or do you do the shotgun approach, finding different markets to bet? Various, kind of spreading yourself out a little bit. What's your move?
So my move traditionally has been for the 500 is usually just purely outrights. I only put a couple outrights out there. I know last year on the pod, I gave out Austin Dillon. I also gave out Austin Cindric. And so I've been able to kind of, you find maybe 5 guys and just kind of spread it around and hope, hey, one of those guys at the end or makes it worth it. Now, I think it was 2021 when McDowell won. FanDuel left a head-to-head up while Ryan Blaney was sitting with his car parked in the grass when Chase Elliott was zooming around. So there are some markets that stay open, and those head-to-heads might hit. I usually do not do head-to-heads. Traditionally, I had previously I had, but it's too much of a volatile market, and I don't feel like there's an edge at all for me now versus then. So outrights only for me.
Outrights only for you. Okay. That is a little bit different than the way I operate, but if you're good, you're good, right? You call out Cindric and Dillon last year, you're definitely cooking with gas and you got some money to play with in the other races. So that'll help.
There's luck to it. So maybe just kind of, maybe it's just sticking with the strategy because it's been lucky over the last number of years. But so that's my strategy. Just so that I see something and have some action on it, but then I'll bet the duels. Like that's one, outrights for the race, but the duels I treat obviously the same way. I don't know what different markets we have this year for the duels other than just outrights, but I try to take all that and then it's duels, trucks, some Xfinity, and then Cup.
Okay. Very good. Well, even though you're not going to be throwing your money down on head-to-heads, I think
I can always be talked into it, Phil. You know
it's
me.
time to get into some actual picks here. And so we'll loop back to maybe any leans you have outright wise if you want to share that or not. But last year and before that, we would get into the full tank face-off. That was what I used to do last year when we brought guests on, and that was calling out head-to-head matchups. So last year it was, hey, Derek would give me a matchup and I would get stuck with whoever he didn't want. Then I would do the same, and then he would have the tiebreaker for the third one. This year, I thought at least to start the season, we'll see how it goes. First few guests we have on, I'm not sure who I have lined up for the next few weeks or not, but I want to be a little bit more, kumbaya. Why do we have to compete right now? You know what I mean? Let's build
take
a
it
parlay.
easy.
Let's build a parlay together. Let's work together here. So
the people's parlay.
The people's parlay. That's right. I needed a name for it. That's why you're the guy. So we need to put together the people's parlay, and we're going to use Caesars because Caesars, I mean, I put this out on the Twitter earlier. I put together a spreadsheet with like what books have what markets, and Caesars is killing it with head-to-heads. They had the futures bets for all 3 series. They've got a ton. After I posted the spreadsheet, they came out right after that with just a crazy amount of markets. So we're going to use Caesars to build a parlay here because there's a lot of different options. And I'm going to pull this up for anyone who's watching this on YouTube. I'll pull this up and we can go through this. But I hope, Derek, that you're able to, kind of follow along and hopefully you got some matchups that you're interested in here. I don't know if you had a chance to take a peek.
I think we definitely will. No, I think there's a mark or there's a head-to-head or two that will. I don't know if they'll surprise you or if, we'll build it. We'll build it up right. So I'm looking forward to this exercise for sure.
All right, so I've got the Caesar Sportsbook open now, and let's just rip this off because we haven't on this episode we haven't really talked about any names specifically. So I'm just going to do like kind of rapid fire for those listening on the pod and watching this on YouTube. We've got Almirola versus Stenhouse, Cindric versus Keselowski, the battle of the 2-car. Briscoe, your boy, versus Suarez, Byron versus Busch, Jones versus Dillon, Wallace versus Gibbs, AJ versus Haley. Wow, they really did their research here. Reddick versus Truex. How about this one? Austin Hill getting some love in the head-to-head. Did he even qualify for the race yet?
Nope.
Versus Ryan Preece, Elliott versus Larson, Gregson versus Burton, Busher versus Harvick, Zane Smith versus Chandler Smith.
Hey, there's your truck series. Matchups. That's what you would always do last year. Yeah,
I know.
So I think this is perfect. And there have been a couple times where I almost went off on a pod, started it and I decided not to. But it really stems with, if you stand for nothing, you stand for everything. And these books have given us nothing with the Clash or anything but Caesars. And I'll let Barstool. Barstool did the most, but it wasn't great at all. But Caesars is coming out firing, and they should be. If anybody else is listening, that is where your money should be going. And I know each state is different with their various offerings, but they are doing the most. They're diving in deep with these head-to-heads that are not just the cream of the crop. These are, you just said, Zane Smith and Chandler Smith. And also good reason to kind of tap into. Make sure you're reading the rules and the regulations when it comes to these markets, because how do they grade it? Do they grade it? Hey, you put your money on it, and even though that driver attempted to qualify, did not qualify, and did you win your money? Did you lose your money? So make sure that you are doing your due diligence. Take a minute or two and read over the fine print, because that is very key when we're looking at some of these names. But I'm seeing a couple here that are just so tight, I feel like, but we could have an edge. So I don't know where you want to start, or if I'm starting, and kind of go from there. But there's so many. There's like 20 matchups, it looks like.
There is a bunch of matchups. I'd like you to start. I've got a bunch that I like really, I'm into. But I'd like you as the guest, first
Yep.
episode of the year, first race of the year. Let's, turn it over to you and we'll talk.
Let
And if I don't like your
let's
pick, that's where
Yeah.
we'll make it, we'll massage it. You know what I mean? We'll come together as a team here and put the people's parlay together. So go ahead.
Well, I think that, like you said, the people's parlay, and what better way to start than the people's driver and Noah Gragson? Let's go to Noah Gragson over Harrison Burton. So last year, Harrison Burton. I'm gonna give some things about Harrison Burton. Right now, this line is Gragson minus 120 versus Burton's minus 110. Burton was strong. When we talk about what car was able to kind of suck up or draft the best, it was the 21 car. But he got into a wreck late. Maybe not his fault, but they were taking advantage of him being a rookie, especially Brad Keselowski. Harrison Burton has so much to prove this year. Unfortunately, I do believe that they rushed him into that car. There's probably some rumors. I was asking Gluck about this. What silly season conversations will we be seeing? I think that 21 car is definitely part of that silly season. But Harrison Burton is a guy that I just don't necessarily trust. In Xfinity, you look at some of his stats from Xfinity. Again, we cannot compare the cars from Xfinity Cup, but his Xfinity numbers are strong at Daytona compared to Talladega. But Noah Gragson is a guy that is equally as strong, if not better, and he's got a full ride this year. He's got a go for broke mentality. So give me Gragson minus 120 to start off the People's Parlay. What do you think about that?
I'm right there with you. When I saw
Good.
this matchup, I
Good.
said I got to have it, and for similar reasons. Gregson has, been decent enough on super speedways, but really this is a absolute fade of Harrison Burton, and I hate fading the young guys because it's they're learning, but Harrison Burton last year was the worst super speedway driver in the game. If
Interesting.
we're talking driver rating,
Yep.
there were only two guys with worse driver ratings that had raced all four super speedway races last year. And those guys were BJ McLeod and Cody Ware. So you're in that category. Then you look at average finish. Harrison Burton, out of everyone in NASCAR, had the worst average finish on super speedways, 32.0. And so,
Wow, that's
you know,
bad. That's very
you say,
bad.
like, all right, well, how about this stat, right? You're like, well, it's super speedways. Like anything can happen. Yes, anything can happen. So let's talk about just getting to halfway. The halfway mark, his average running position at the halfway mark in 4 races, 28.5. He's not even
Jeez.
making it to the
No.
halfway mark. So we got to fade Harrison Burton.
Yep.
My eyes lit up when we saw that we had that opportunity. And then with Noah, you know, I called this out earlier when talking about Eric Jones. I like how there's 3 of them now. We got Johnson out there. Like they've got a third
Mhm.
car, strength in numbers, Chevy, but the 3 of them together, and Johnson is probably not going to be in it to be able to win it, but he's a 7-time champion. He's Jimmy Johnson. So goddamn, like, how could you not be pumped to have him in your stable, sharing notes, getting you going in practice, that sort of thing. And maybe he will be up there at the end and pushing and shoving. So I like this pick, Derek. I like it a lot. And he's minus 120. So that's how we'll start. This parlay, it's a good start.
I like it. And there's two more things, just two quick things. One, I heard it on Dale Jr.'s podcast today. He said about how timid drivers will not do well at super speedways, but aggressive guys will. No, Gregson is an aggressive driver, but he's also very smart when it comes to this style of racing. I feel like Harrison Burton, very timid, maybe a little under pressure, maybe not going to make the right moves at times. And like you rattled off his stats, but regarding his stats, you said 4 super speedway races. There are actually 6 super speedway races. So why do you not use Atlanta? Because I see Atlanta as the closest comp to Daytona.
I refuse. I just
you're the one guy that's like, I will. Yeah, it's always a mile half intermediate.
I'm an old man yelling in a cloud.
That's exactly it.
And I get it. Like, I'm a fan of Byron this week. I'm calling him out to win this race. And his super speedway stats have not been great, yet he won at Atlanta. So that's a feather in the cap. So I'm kind of picking and choosing. And I get that. I'm not being fair in a case like that. But I'm taking the stance, like when I'm doing my research this week, I'm not including Atlanta. When we go to Atlanta, I will obviously use the 2 other big tracks in trying to populate that stuff. But when I have enough data on actual super speedway tracks that we know are not going to change, and the package that NASCAR brings is not going to change what is going to happen on the track, I'm good with it. I'm good just using Talladega and Daytona, especially last year.
Okay.
That was kind of an experimental year last year in Atlanta, and we'll see, if it brings the same type of stuff moving forward. But and look, I'm probably in the minority there. Like, I probably am, but until
I don't know
get
if you are.
I'm
not sure. Old man yells at clouds. I'm not sure.
There's probably a lot of old men out there yelling at clouds, so I'm probably not in minority in that case.
My
neighbor does it all the time. But as far as excluding Atlanta, I might be, and I'm fine with that. Like, if there's a statistic out there that is going to be skewed in such a way by including Atlanta that it's going to make you tuned in to someone further down the odds list by that dramatic sense, like, good on you. Like, I'm not, I don't know if that's possible, but if it is, like, so be it.
Good.
So yeah, that's just kind of how I'm playing it this week. So yeah. All right. There was something that I wanted to try to pull up. The guy I'm zeroing in on next is Ryan Preece. Ryan Preece, he was not in the Cup Series last year, so we don't really have too much data on Preece in the more recent past. And Austin Hill, there's no data really with him in the Cup Series. I could be wrong. Maybe he raced like 1 or 2 in the. Yep. Okay, so it's just Michigan.
I believe it was just Michigan last year.
And this is not a fade of Austin Hill. This is me, because I like Austin Hill. I cheer for the truck drivers who do well. That's my gig. But Ryan Preece is someone, who I am rooting for this year because of what he did last year. Talked about it on the Silly Season pod and all that. But Ryan Preece has 3. I'm doing this from memory now. I don't have it up in front of me, but I'm pretty sure it's 3 career top 10 finishes, and they're all at super speedways. So Ryan Preece in a better car now. I liked what I saw, if we overreact to the Clash, liked what we saw in the Clash, showing some speed on a tiny little track. Now you're getting him onto a spot where he clearly has had the most success in his career. So I like this matchup against a guy who's not a Cup regular. So I'm not even sure if Austin will be in the 500. I'm not sure if he's locked in or not. Did you happen to know that answer? Or does
No,
he have to race his way in?
he has to race his way in. So that's
Okay.
where it kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier. Got to make sure that, if we put this together and or bet on it individually, how do they grade that? But I think, like you said too, and I will let you finish, but I think Ryan Preece has 3 top 5s and 6 top 10s on super speedways, but I could be wrong on it. I know it's his best track style of racing in the Cup Series. I could be totally wrong.
Yeah, maybe you're right.
We're just
the
pumping them up
fact
even more.
the fact that remains, the super
Mm-hmm.
speedways are his playground,
Yep.
and I'm so excited to see what Ryan Preece will be able to do in this vehicle this season. Daytona, whatever happens, happens. But
What a story
if
that
he
would
goes
be.
out, if he goes out and gets wrecked, we can't overreact and say like, "Oh, Preece, he what a loser he is." No, like
Mm-hmm.
it's just take the bumps and move on. I'm expecting
Mm-hmm.
good things from him this year, but I think we're going to be able to capitalize on this matchup. So,
Yeah.
we will have to check if the people's parlay gets ruined by any way going into the race. If Hill doesn't make the race, we'll replace it with something.
Yeah.
But right now, with Noah and Preece, we're at plus 219. So,
Mm-hmm.
do you have another one you want to throw in here to?
Yeah, let's go down the whole way to the bottom. I think I see where I want to go, but I just want to make sure that we're, checking all these out here. So we have a couple different options to go. I actually like this one. We didn't read this one, but Alex Bowman versus Jimmy Johnson, the battle of the 48 car, if you will. You can keep going up. Alex Bowman there. Actually, let's stay there. Let's stay here. Let's stay here. This is interesting, and I think it's price dependent for me here. Jimmy Johnson is at plus 130 in this matchup. Hit Jimmy Jam for me if you don't mind. And let's see what we
Holy
got the people's
mackerel.
parlay here. So Alex Bowman is in a contract year for the 48 car. The 84 car now of Jimmy Johnson's coming back, multiple time Daytona 500 winner. If there's ever a place where you come back and race in a rate, now it's an open car, so he has to advance his way, whether it's speed on Wednesday or qualify his way on Thursday. But at plus money, plus 130, which I think is the most I've seen so far, that is in a head-to-head. That is something that I do not want to pass up. And I do not think just because Alex Bowman is in a Hendrick 48 car and Jimmy Johnson's in an 84 Legacy Motor Club vehicle, which Legacy Motor Club last year in 2022 were pretty damn good when it came to 2 mile plus cars. They were very stout at times. So give me that plus 130 of Jimmy Jam and load that in, and that's the side I'm going to go. That price alone is where I want to get that value on going into Sunday.
So this is where it's
I just blew your
fun.
mind.
Yeah. I think it's a thought-provoking pick because there's a lot of moving parts to it. You've got a perfect chance here to keep your eyes. I mean, obviously, I'll lock in the people's parlay right now. Like as soon as we're done the show, I'll throw it in. But if you're just focusing on this matchup, right? You're right. Plus 130 is the most you're going to get as the gambler for plus money in a head-to-head matchup on Caesars. And I can't imagine you're going to get better value elsewhere. I have DraftKings pulled up here as well. And I don't think they usually go that high, plus 130.
No, not on super
There's
speedways.
there's not even one. Okay. Kyle Larson
Plus,
is plus 100. That's the most you're going to get. So it's unprecedented, plus 130. So that is very intriguing. I'm not sure. I think we need to see if this is just a total dog shit car. Like qualifying for this, I think actually would tell me a little bit. Like, because if he can't even get around the track, like if he's getting beat by Ty Dillon or, then red flags go off in my head.
It always goes back to Ty Dillon.
Yeah.
I love
Ty
it.
Dillon, maybe he could probably take Jimmy down. But if he's getting beat by the likes of, JJ Yaley, then like that's a problem.
That's true. I think Jimmy does qualify his way in. I don't think Jimmy's going to Daytona or getting back in a car, racing however many races, 6, 8, 10, whatever it's going to be in 2023, and gets in a car that's even half of competitive of what he was at HMS. Now, that's a different generation of vehicle. This is Gen 7. I think Jimmy qualifies his way in. Those ECR engines, I think, get the job done for him, and being able to kind of beat the guys that he's competing against. So that's kind of my factor. He's also, to me, the safest driver of all the open cars that I think can qualify his way. So I like that factor. But given his experience, we're at a super speedway. It doesn't need a whole lot of skill set. It's going to come back to him pretty early, just kind of those muscle memory factors. But yeah, that's I'm happy to switch that out with anybody else you might want, but that would be my argument. Price is key with that.
Yeah, I mean, I like it because it bolsters the parlay. We needed something plus 634 is the final number there, and I could get down with that. So I will I'll put that out, and you might now. I'm not sure. NASCAR books have always changed year in, year out. They take the lines down during when the
Mm-hmm.
cars are on the track. And who knows
Yes.
if these are going to
Yep.
come back up in the same way. But let's just pretend for a second that these are matchups that are locked in all the way through Sunday. Um, I who knows? You could be listening to this on like Friday, Saturday. Bowman, I would imagine, is going to be qualifying very well. Like I already put a bet on him to win the pole. He
Okay.
has been on the front row like 4 times in the last how many years? So front row Bo is going to go
Oh.
and do well. So that could theoretically, if this matchup stays there, this could maybe give you even more value. I don't know. I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
they would make it like
Mm-hmm.
plus 150, but like we said,
True.
I'm not going to, you know, I'm not going to bite the hand that feeds me. Plus 130 is pretty good if you're looking for this value. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, let's lock it in. So to recap the parlay, the people's parlay, 3 legs, Noah Gregson, we've got over Harrison Burton, we've got Ryan Preece over Austin Hill, and we've got Jimmy Johnson, hard underdog here, plus 130 over Alex
Hard.
Bowman.
Yep.
So there it is, plus 634 if you have access to Caesars or any book that has the same APIs as them. Go out and follow
Mm-hmm.
us on or ride with us, tail us on
Mm-hmm.
the People's Parlay. So good stuff, Derek. I know, like you said, betting head to heads at super speedway is not your thing, but I think you pulled it off there, so well done.
I think you talked me
Well, I
into
guess
a
we'll find
few.
out on Sunday if you did.
I know. No, that's how it goes though. Like my strategy going in is one thing, and then I knew coming on the pod it was going to be like, well, I might be talked into something else. I'm prepared for it. Is my bankroll prepared for it? We'll see. But yeah, I mean, I'm going to get down, like you said, with Caesars and do that. So I'm going to ride that as well. I'll plug that in the Action Network. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. That's a good exercise for sure.
Yeah, it's fun. We'll see if it hits. If it does, all the more
Mm-hmm.
reason to keep that alive and keep that going throughout the year. Um, before we get to like any final thoughts, any, I guess, leans for Daytona that you would want to share? Do you want to kind of keep that closer to
Oh
the
yeah.
chest, follow on Action Network and other
No.
places, or anybody you want to talk about?
No, I'm already on William Byron. He's my only outright right
Hell yeah,
now that
baby.
I'm on. I read the script for the Daytona 500, and it's William Byron. It was always William Byron. So Byron's the guy that I'm really keen on heading into qualifying in the duels. Obviously, there's a lot that could happen. I'm not trying to get too invested yet, but I do want to kind of give a stat because we've seen Chevy kind of dominate the qualifying element. And then we've seen the Fords do well, really well here recently in the Daytona 500. If it's not Ford, it's been Toyota. I will say that Chevy has won. In 1993, it was Dale Jarrett with the Interstate Batteries car. 2003, Chevy won with Michael Waltrip. 2013, Jimmy Johnson won. So there's a trend there with those threes every 10
Wow.
years. So Chevy is a play at 150. If you shop around, you can find the 150 number at plus 150. If you just want to have the entire fleet of Chevrolets, that's a play that I like as well. But I'm going to be loading the card probably pretty heavy with Chevys, regardless, because I think I found some of the trends that I want to go with, and I'm not going to get off of it. So unless something terrible happens.
You have sold me. Plus 150. Where are you seeing plus 150 at? Is that
Yeah, so you have to
Barstool?
shop around. Yeah, you have to shop. Barstool, I believe, was at 135. I'd be curious what DraftKings is, but yeah, that number's kind of going from 125 up to 150. I don't have the specific book in front of me, but yeah.
Okay.
So those are kind of the plays that I'm looking at now. Manufacturer. Oh, now Barstool's down to 115. So they're getting some money somewhere. But yeah, that's where I'm at. William Byron, like I said, is the only one I'm on right now. If I had to go leans, it would be Eric Jones is a good lean. We saw what he was able to do. I think he's got a little chip on his shoulder. But William Byron goes back to, hey, he won Atlanta, he won Martinsville, kind of faded away the rest of the year being a test car, and he won his first race at Daytona. Won an Xfinity race at Daytona as well, and then won at Atlanta. And I think that 24 car is going to be in the front late.
Well, I'm also in on Byron, so I'm glad you read the script. Glad you're
Yep.
sharing it.
Yep.
I'm gonna tail that Chevy pick. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
sucker for patterns and trends. The way you just laid that out, 93 all the way to 2023. So I'm
Yep.
in. And guess where you can get plus 150 right now on Chevy? Caesar Sportsbook. They are on
Boom. That's
fucking fire,
let's
dude.
go
So
Caesars.
I'll tell you what, they are on one. So yeah, this is not a promotion. This is just trying to
This
send out to
this
you
can
guys
be.
listening. Yeah,
Yeah.
Caesars, if you're
They're
listening,
doing the
please.
most, and they're not even a partner of NASCAR. Like they
I
are
know
doing the
it's
most
crazy.
right now. Now, I think Barstool will get there because they have a lot of people going down to the race, and they're going to make it a big deal. And them of all partners have really done the best. BetMGM and Win have not. They did nothing. They did absolutely nothing at the Clash. So, and they had a car sponsored. How do you? Okay, let me just go off here. But how does BetMGM sponsor Kyle Busch's car for the Clash, and yet they turn around and they say, we're only going to offer outrights, maybe a head-to-head or two. We're not going to
Insane.
offer much more. That's
It's
crazy.
insane. It's
And then
crazy.
Caesars is like, I'll just give you the whole fucking thing. Here you go. So give me Caesars. Minus 1,000 for Caesars.
Yeah, it's just just crazy that I love it, and I'm gonna share this again. Pulling up my Twitter right now. For anyone
Mm-hmm.
watching this on YouTube, it's a visual, but
It's great.
um, it I I was oh shoot, I think I just now I got to share a screen again. Sorry, bad radio for those listening on the podcast, but this is a graphic that shows like full on who has what market. And
Mm-hmm.
Barstool has the most options. The only thing they don't have compared to the other books is group betting. So like you have group A and it's like 4 drivers to choose from. They've got everything else. Win, top 3, top 5, top 10, head to head, team bets, manufacturer bets, top car in the manufacturer, race props, qualifying, championship odds, season win totals. They've got everything. So that makes sense that they're partnered with NASCAR. Caesars
Has
has
everything now.
a few of those. Now they've really come alive since I made this book. And not only that, Caesars has
Everything.
markets that are
They have
not even
everything.
included. They've got exactas, they've got exacta
Mm-hmm.
boxes. It's
Which is crazy.
insanity.
And they
I
have
mean,
top 10 parlays. I think there was a William Byron, Bubba Wallace top 10 parlay that they created. They curate those odds and put them in there. All you have to do is hit it and then bet it. And I believe it was plus 8,500. So 85 to 1, I believe was that. Bubba Wallace, William Byron, both finished top 10. Those kind of
you
great things are crazy.
you were
I'm
looking at
telling you.
the exact same thing that I was looking at, but Derek, I think that was to finish 1-2 plus
Oh,
85.
well, you know what? Technically, they're both still top 10s. So whether it's 1-2 or not, where am I wrong? Okay, that might
No,
good call
but
there, Phil. Maybe I didn't read
what's
the full print.
funny, but what's crazy is that I circled that on
Mm-hmm.
my notebook and I said William Byron, Bubba Wallace, 1-2, 85 to 1. And like you called it
We are
right out.
either squares or we are brilliant, and I'm not sure which one to think since we're both on these things. But that's cool that you were thinking that as well.
Yeah, I mean it's wild. And to finish that thought, MGM, who has NASCAR like in their app with the logo and everything, all they have is still odds to win.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mhm.
Yeah, give these books a look, shop around. But for you as the gambler right now, Caesars has decent odds. Barstool has some good odds. It look like for top tens compared to other books from what I've seen. But yeah, you
Mhm.
definitely shop around if you have that ability. So yeah, good stuff. Final thoughts heading into the weekend. You got a good spot to good plan for the race to watch
I
it.
do. Yeah. Yeah. No, I do a lot of grilling. One of my passions and hobbies, aside from gambling and talking, doing some content creation, is I love to fire up the grill and make some. Uh, Usually, what I do, full disclosure, I tend to go curate a meal, whether it's chicken, so poultry, whatever it is going to be, and I usually curate that to the flavors of where NASCAR is visiting that city that week. So I'm going to
That
be
is
throwing on some
interesting.
different things from a Daytona perspective, figure out what flavors and different things that they tend to are known for down there. And I'll do that up here while I watch the race on Sunday. But I can't wait to watch the duels. We'll be doing the NASCAR Betting Preview Show during qualifying. So we'll be able to kind of sweat out maybe some pole bets there. And then the duels on Thursday, which I always love. And then trucks Friday. You and I are going to do a truck series pod on the NASCAR Betting Preview Show podcast. So I can't wait to do that. And then roll right into Xfinity, and then it's the calm before the storm and just soak up what it feels like our Super Bowl is on Sunday. So I'm pumped, man. I know you are as well.
Yep. Yep. Can't wait. I'm thrilled that somehow the last few years we've naturally gotten President's Day the next day after Daytona because I need that day to recover. So yeah, I'm excited, really excited for this weekend. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So Derek, thank you as always. We'll be talking with you a bunch throughout the season, but I'm happy to snag you for this episode, this podcast right now before you're off and running here with all the other ventures that you've got going on. So appreciate it once again. Tell everyone where they can find you throughout this season.
Sure, and I appreciate it. So yeah, you can follow me at Derek Yoder _ on Twitter. You can follow the NASCAR Betting Preview Show and All Things Go on Apple, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. Follow the show via our Twitter, like we just mentioned, and the NASCAR Betting Preview Show on there. And make sure you support Podium Esports and what they're doing with Twitch.com/Podium Esports, YouTube as well. And those are where you can find me every day of the week, it feels like. So Phil, I appreciate it again for having me on, and I'm looking forward to kicking this year off and doing this a lot more in 2023 and doing maybe another live stream or two in person together, and then you and I getting together once or twice as well. So I'm looking forward to it. Love the show. Glad to see that it's growing and everything that you're doing with it. So thanks for having me on and allowing me to kick off the year with you.
Wouldn't have it any other way. I appreciate it, Derek. And hopefully we're cashing some tickets on Sunday and setting ourselves up. So
That's right.
let's go 24. Huh?
That's
All right.
right.
See you, Derek.
See ya.